Hello and welcome to Connect, the weekly podcast of the California MBA, featuring one-on-one interviews with movers and shakers in the mortgage industry. I'm Susan Milazzo, CEO of the California MBA, and I'm very happy that you can join us today. Before I get to today's guest, I would like to thank our 2023 President's Council sponsors. Now, these are companies that have given a tremendous amount of financial support to our association for this year, and we are greatly, very appreciative of their support. Of course, this allows us to do many things, not the least of which is to continue our strong representation for the real estate finance industry before California State Legislature and our regulators. So please help me in welcoming and thanking AmeriHome, Arch MI, Consolidated Analytics, Accelerate, Funding Shield, Guild Mortgage, Rocket Mortgage, and Western Alliance Bank. Thank you to our 2023 President's Council sponsors, and we greatly appreciate your support. And that brings me to today's guest. I'm very happy to be welcoming Ali Nassirian with Golden One Credit Union Home Mortgage to Connect podcast. Ali, good morning.
Good morning, Susan, and thank you for having me on this morning.
Yeah, we think we connected at our Top Golf event in Roseville a few months ago. So it's very exciting that we could have you on the podcast. I know we talked about it, and now we're finally making it happen.
So excited to be here. That was a great event as well. So thank you for inviting us there as well.
Yeah, I think we're definitely making that an annual thing. We had way too much fun to not repeat that again.
It was fun.
Mortgage Golfers Association, they like it. And it's like combines all of our favorite things, right?
There we go.
So I just like to get started with finding out a little bit of information about, how you got into this business. And so why don't we get started there and tell us how you got into the mortgage business?
So definitely, few decades ago, got involved on the banking side, personal banker and along those lines, and got some exposure to the home loans avenue there. And from there, I worked in some origination models, different models that gave me some good insight and exposure, consumer direct and retail models. And then from there, the passion just kept growing and transition into leadership, and really glad I've ended up somewhere that I feel strong about, passionate about, and I'm able to contribute to help others.
That's great. That's great. So, interesting. You've been at mortgage companies, non-depositories, sounds like regular banking, and now you're at a credit union. So what's the cultural differences in coming from kind of that model to the credit union model?
Yeah, there's a lot of good platforms out there, and each of them has their unique advantages. The model now with the credit union, it's more of a culture, member-oriented, service-oriented. So, it's a longer term outlook where, the lender for life is the commitment, and everyone definitely feels involved. There's open discussions on many things. And it's always to improve upon the process. So that, having that structure and having those outlets to speak to leaders and being able to have input, I think that's been beneficial for individuals who have chosen to come to the credit union environment.
And how does, it seems to me, and I could be wrong, but it seems to me like the mortgage department's like its own kind of entity within the credit union in some respects. How does Golden One set itself apart from competitors?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of lenders providing great value out there, and there's a lot of good platforms, and there's lenders that are definitely, providing a place that's desirable for candidates. Here we try to lead with the, keeping things simple and easy, not overcomplicating things. We've definitely tried to provide a place where there's a lot of resources. If you contribute and give value, then you will be a top destination on a candidate's list. So we've definitely, like you said, we've built out the home loans division here amongst the credit union to make it something that a loan officer, when they draw up the perfect ideal landing spot for them, that a lot of the things that we have checks off their box as well.
Right. One of the things I've noticed in your profile, you have a professional designation, the AMP Accredited Mortgage Professional from the National MBA, which I know those are, there's work and effort that goes into that, CMB, all the other professional designations. And so I'm always impressed by people who make that commitment and go through and get that. Why was that important for you to obtain that designation?
I'm a big fan of self-development, individuals to invest in themselves, that try to desire for the higher education. And the MBA has definitely put out this certification course that allows individuals of different backgrounds and skill sets to come together through their School of Mortgage Banking. So in these 3 sessions, what I've actually was able to do is not further and advance my educational and abilities in the industry, but I realized there was a lot of networking. I've actually made some really good contacts and friends through these 3 courses that we connect with daily with what challenges we're working on, how we can help each other. So I think it's really great for the industry to have these certifications and individuals that desire that pursuit of education.
Yeah, I've heard those kind of the bonds of networking kind of last. We hear that with our Future Leaders program too. We're like, oh yeah, I was in that program 3 years ago with so-and-so, and we still get together, for lunch every quarter and stuff. I was like, wow, that's good. It's good to know that, your organizations can, help create and develop those professional networks as we pursue our career.
It's great.
Another thing I noticed on your profile is that you were on the board in 2021, I believe, for the California Building Industry Association with my friend Dan Dunmoyer, who's my counterpart over there. Dan and I've known each other for a long time. They have, of course, different sets of issues than we do, but certainly in California, our housing supply issue is not insignificant. So what can you share with me about your time on the board and leadership there, about kind of the forecast for our housing supply issues in California?
Yeah, it's obviously a big concern. Demand continues to grow, and we're obviously not keeping up with that demand. I think the elasticity model was like 0.49. The housing starts, I think the most recent data showed that was going down as well. And then you look at all these other factors, right? The inflation, right? And how that's contributing, the cost of the materials.
Right.
And then you cross over into where the market is with the rate environment currently, and where that's really moved in the last year, let's say. And then lastly, you got, the buyer the cancellations. So it's so many elements that are playing into this, not to leave out affordability, as we're trying to grow the home ownership percentage in California. So it's tough to say it's one area. I think everyone's trying to do their part to help and be a contributor here and really drive the home ownership number up. But I was on that board 2 years ago, and it looks like a lot of those challenges continue to build up and stay consistent. Some new ones entered the space, but I'm very optimistic with the leaders we have that we're able to get some promising results and move forward on it.
Yeah, it's I would love to find ways that we can support CBIA and some of their supply issues, housing wise going forward. So we'll continue to work on that, but they do a great job. CBIA is a wonderful organization.
They are.
So, Golden One recently rejoined the California MBA, for which, of course, I'm very grateful and happy to be working with you. Can you share with our listeners why it's important for you to support the California MBA?
Yeah, it was very important for us. Obviously, the California MBA is a great advocate for the industry, and they do a lot of work being that lead voice for us. So for us, number one, there's a lot of educational content. There's a lot of webinars. Then you mentioned the networking, which, back to the MBA and the certification, I think that's very important. And for us, we have a great footprint across the state. And the California MBA aligns a lot with Golden One, is providing value and being a value contributor to the industry. So we're really excited that we're able to rejoin and be a contributor moving forward.
That's excellent. Well, again, thank you so much for your support for our organization. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Susan.
And thank you for being on today's podcast. And thanks to all of you for joining us for today's episode of Connect. To access any of our past episodes, you can follow us on our YouTube channel. We're also available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. That's it for this week, and we'll see you next time on Connect.